with 9 points. In fact, the leading jammer in the entire game. Mindy Smith not far behind, 5 points as well as we come down to the end of the third period. Both teams going. And oh, great move by the Hot Dice again with a lift. And it kind of backfired. You see Heather Gunn very proud of herself, picking up 4 more points. That's 13 for the game.
But give some credit to Mindy Smith in this shootout. She had 2 to bring her total to 7. They're not done yet. We're all knotted at 21, Ken. Sean Corbin's getting some order back. We'll be back with the task score right after this.
Yet even Heather Gunn said to her teammates, climb on my back, scoring 10 of her game-high 13 points on that period. Now can the men keep it up? A bit of a surprise. Brian Gamble at the very top of the track wearing a jammer helmet. Mark Webber at the bottom of the track for the Nevada Hot Dice. It's Gamble coming around. Gamble, I don't think is quite used to jamming. He's having a little problem gaining his balance. And here comes Mark Webber. Gamble gets all tangled up in the front skate. And what a move by Mark Webber, jumping right over Brian Gamble. And both surprised by both teams as who they decided to send out. I think both clubs wanting to serve notice that they were going to get physical. But it was Gamble who got tied up. Now Mark Webber dealing with Captain Mark D'Amato, who rotated to the back of the pack, trying to block out, as is Tim Washington, keeping a sharp eye on the action behind him. And now, again, Gamble gets all tangled up with another member of the Hot Dice. It's all up to Mark Webber. Now, D'Amato grabs him in a headlock. What's he trying to set up? Webber scrambling in. It's a king on from Tim Washington, who absolutely levels Mark Webber. No scoring. Richard Brown now comes over to shove Washington out of the way.
Well, and this highlights the strengths of both teams, Ken. Mark Webber, much more team speed for the Nevada Hot Dice. Mark Webber just don't get out of, and Brian Gamble had no chance, not near the speed of Mark Webber. But then Mark Webber comes around and we see the strength of the New York Enforcers, and that is punishment as Tim Washington with the King Kong. I think Mark Webber might felt like he fell from the Empire State Building on that one.
And heads up played by Tim Washington, preventing Webber from getting by him. It looked like Webber was trying to crawl by. Had he done so, he would have picked up a point, but Washington prevented it. And Micah Martin takes the atomic whip and lost an edge on his skate and went down. And this opens it up for John Morrissey. Now Micah Martin preventing the other enforcer jammer from getting by. Micah Martin very quick back on his skates and keeping his wits about it, preventing the other enforcer jammer from going by. There you see number 11, Eichhorn, trying to get back on the track, rather J.R. Widener. I beg your pardon, and now Micah Martin closing on Tim Washington. Micah Martin was able to use his speed to get by a couple of the enforcers, but it's not exactly working that way so far as he tries to get by Washington. Now Richard Brown rotates back, has some words for his young protege. Remember, Brown originally tuned Sam Martin. Now he's doing the same to Micah Martin. The spin around for Richard Brown. Micah Martin goes by, cuts off the jam after picking 1 point for passing Widener, 1 point for Tim Washington, 2 points, but there you see the experience of spin around of Richard Brown.
Well, the crafty veteran once again comes through. Tim Washington was celebrating a little bit, Ken. We saw him last time with the King Kong, sent Mark Webber into next month. Right there he was celebrating, think he was going to do the same to Micah Martin, but little Richard Brown comes around, blocks him out of the way. Micah Martin scores the points. Great job, Nevada Hot Dice.
You saw the frustration on Captain Mark D'Amato. Remember the enforcers coming off that embarrassing win yet. This is another atomic whip, and this time it's to Jason McDaniel, who's able to keep his skates underneath him and stay the ground, but coming up very quick on the inside is Fred Eichhorn. It's Eichhorn number 12, Jason McDaniel 36. We've got a very tight game. It's anybody's game. Remember, both of these teams coming off a loss. We've already talked about how badly both teams want to win to gain some momentum coming up into the Founders Cup. And now a great opportunity for Jason McDaniels. He goes right by Mark D'Amato. Richard Brown drops Brian Gamble. Jason McDaniel adding to his already impressive point total. Put 3 more points on the board, and now he cuts it off. That's 8 points for the game for Jason McDaniel.
But once again, these New York Enforcers have just a load of trouble with team speed. You see that with Jason McDaniel in his performance tonight. And speaking of a load of trouble, Mark D'Amato and and little Richard Brown, Sean Corbin has a load of trouble on his hands as they separate these two.
It's the dice by 5. Let's go to Danny Wolf.
I just heard Karen Magnuson tell April Tootle, we can't afford to lose to another rotten team. And I think she alludes to it. They lost to the Rustlers last time. They can't afford to lose to the Hot Dice. We're beating them by 5 points right now with the tournament time approaching. The Enforcers can't afford to go into the tournament on a losing streak. However, the Hot Dice are playing a great game. Little Richard Brown really coming to the rescue of his teammates in the second half. Right now, just about 2.5 minutes left. Back to you, Hawk and Ken.
Certainly the New York Enforcers are going to need some kind of rescue there, in dire need of going into the Founders Cup with a 2-game losing streak, something at one point would have been unheard of in the WSL. And they send out the crafty veteran, number 13, John Morrissey, and the Nevada Hot Dice counter with Micah Martin. Certainly the speed right now with the edge to the Nevada Hot Dice. And Kristen Salvia turns around. Great teamwork by Martin and Salvia. Drops John Morrissey, and now the two Nevada Hot Dice skaters. What Micah Martin is doing there, it's a little karaoke move from football, to say the least, but now they close on Tim Washington. The big elbow slows Salvia, and Micah Martin gets his top skate caught on the railing and goes down. Again now, Richard Brown coming back, trying to deal with Tim Washington to see if he can get at least one, if not two, of his jammers around the big guy, as we're running out of time in this game. Roll them both from Mark Webber. They both go by at the last second and put 2 more dice points on the board. Look at Richard Brown.
Oh, and Richard Brown out and adding insult to injury to Tim Washington, Ken. Here late in the game, Tim Washington has taken his lumps. We saw little Richard Brown go after him before. Then Mark Webber takes him on. And little Richard Brown is not done with Washington. He's going after Mark D'Amato off the track.
If there was any question about Mark D'Amato saying the bad alliance is gone, this absolutely answers it. Absolutely. The bottom line for Mark D'Amato, as time continues to run down, you see the roll them bones by Mark Webber. The New York Enforcers are trailing the Hot Dice by 7 points. Richard Brown, a back body drop, sends Webber, rather D'Amato over the railing, goes right out into the crowd after him. Now you see Richard Brown again. How many times have we seen this? Richard Brown not thinking, gets sent into the penalty box when all his team needed to do was go into a defensive stance and run out the clock, as Tim Washington being treated by a trainer on the infield. Way down, remember, it's the jam clock that means something. Dan Giovanni gets sprung free, along with Eichhorn, for the Nevada Hot Dice. It's number 34, P.J. Rossi, and down over the railing goes one of the other Hot Dice jammers. Now it's all up. It's all or nothing right now. It's number 12 for the Enforcers. Eichhorn, number 15, Dan Giovanni. They trail this one by 7. They need 7 to tie, 8 to win it.